Get your ears wrapped around the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. All the scoop you need to know from college basketball to the NBA and even March Madness. News of your rising stars. Topics on and off the hardwood. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast.
GSMC Basketball Podcast. Right here on the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Brice. Another jam-packed show for you today. Great P&A show today with a couple of stories and some and a plan that could be in place for the NBA to get back into the swing of things. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about news. We're going to talk about some college topics, about one and dones in college, and should kids be able to come out of college, and other things related to the NBA in college. You know, I try to keep it very open around this time of coronavirus, not allowing a lot of things to happen during this time, but anything we can find, anything we can use, we will talk to you about on this podcast to continue to give you premium content that you can enjoy when you come and listen to me on the GSMC Podcast Network. And we're going to jump right into the news. So, obviously about 2 weeks ago, Kevin Durant, who has his own show called The Boardroom, made a deal with ESPN to have a 2K tournament. And the winner of this 2K tournament will win money to give to a charity. Now, obviously, Kevin Durant set this up to give ESPN content, because obviously ESPN is looking for any type of content they can use, or else you're just going to see reruns all day. And this gives you some new content that you can watch and see players in a different light. You know, we know these players are gamers, but you don't actually see it unless they have like a Twitch like Devin Booker. So it's good to see him in this light, see him be basically like us on an everyday basis. A lot of people who play the game of NBA 2K and etc. But so they had their tournament. The tournament's gone on for 2 weeks, and the new champion was crowned as Devin Booker has won the entire tournament. He defeated his teammate, actually, who also made it to the finals, DeAndre Ayton, in the finals 2-0, because in the last two rounds they did a best of 3, and so Devin Booker won 2-0 against DeAndre Ayton. So that obviously went very well for that. Congratulations to Devin Booker. I honestly felt like Devin Booker had a very good chance, because, out of all of them, when you listen to all of the people in the tournament, some of these guys just started playing 2K, haven't played it in a while, don't play it that much, but DeAndre Ayton and Devin Booker has a Twitch channel. He plays games for a living, so, in his free time. So, I would believe the guy who plays it the most or plays it more in his free time will probably be more ready for this tournament, where a lot of guys who are just starting to play it or haven't played it as much won't be as prepared. Now, I will sit here and I'll have some criticisms. First, Ronnie 2K is the most uncharismatic person I've ever met in my life. When they cut to him, it's just there's no excitement. That's one thing this tournament lacked, was excitement. Yes, it's video games, but you could still make it more important, exciting. Ronnie 2K he just sounds like he's sucking the charisma out of the room. Because it did not sound very, very pleasing to hear him. It just sounded like he was just like, yeah, 2K tournament, yeah, playing each other, yeah, they won. So I think that's the biggest thing. And also I think one thing about this tournament is, like, in a lot of E-League games, or for video game tournaments on these channels, they usually have commentators. They didn't have that here. They allowed the players to speak and give their commentary while playing 2K. They wanted to give more of a realistic feel of, these are real people playing 2K, talking like normal people would do on 2K. And they felt, but at the same time, I say this, it works when you're with your friends and they're just talking and you're watching them play 2K. It doesn't work when you put them on national television and then you're act like you're just in the living room playing by just yourselves. It's not the same. And a lot of people made criticisms thinking they should have maybe had like a commentary team, or they should have put more, because you can't expect the players that are playing to carry it, because sometimes there were points where they didn't talk. Now, obviously, you could tell later on more conversation had happened, but especially in the first game, Derrick Jones Jr. and Kevin Durant really didn't say too much, and you could just tell it just felt like you were just watching guys play a game. It was just like, ugh. I mean, there were some things definitely that could have changed in this tournament that could have made it more enjoyable for everybody who watched it at home, but it wasn't bad by any stretch of the imagination. I would not consider this a failure by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, listen, they're just trying to get content. I mean, they have Horse now that they're gonna, start doing. So there's some stuff there. It's just a matter of, working out the kinks. I don't know if they'll ever do another 2K tournament again, but maybe. You never know. This could open up ideas, maybe cross-branding, leagues. I mean, you don't know, but I mean, like I said, Devin Booker was the winner of this tournament. It was okay for what it was, and, there you go. So, we'll have to go from there. But, other news. Rudy Gobert. Obviously, Rudy Gobert has been slandered, attacked, and destroyed on social media because of what happened with the Utah Jazz and people thinking he gave the virus to Donovan Mitchell. And even if he didn't, just his carelessness that he showed after they said that, you need to stay 6 feet away and not do all this stuff. A lot of people attacked him for that. And then a report came out this past week that Donovan Mitchell does not seem to be willing to repair right now the relationship that they had. Because obviously, Donovan Mitchell is probably of the decision that I got coronavirus from Rudy Gobert, and he was careless, and he could have put my life at risk knowing how deadly this virus can be. So they have had a report that their relationship may be beyond repair. Rudy Gobert spoke out and said, yeah, we don't have the greatest relationship right now, but we do want to win a championship. So he's saying that even though we may not have the greatest personal relationship right now, we do have the same goals in mind, and that's good enough to get us through this period. Because obviously, unless Utah decides, okay, if these guys can't work out, we need to trade them, one of them, these guys are going to be on the court again. And remember, they're currently slotted in the playoffs. So if the season comes back, they got to play together. You can't just cut them. So they're going to have to play together. So obviously, I understand Utah definitely probably wants to work that out and try to, fix that situation before it gets too crazy. You don't want anything where the locker room was going to say, because you even heard after the initial diagnosis to both Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell that the players in the Utah Jazz locker room weren't happy with Rudy. A lot of people point out on social media that nobody really wished Rudy Gobert a speedy recovery. They were wishing Donovan Mitchell a speedy recovery. So people have been speculating, how do NBA players feel about him? So, I mean, we'll have to see, but, we'll see what happens. If the relationship is really beyond repair, I highly doubt they'll trade Donovan Mitchell, probably Rudy Gobert, but we'll have to see what happens when it gets to that decision and when it gets to that time. And then also, the GMs, obviously, as we discussed how the league could potentially come back, I'll go more into depth next segment, but the GMs would if the season is planning on coming back, if they know 30 days ahead of time the season's coming back, general managers would like the league to give players and teams a chance to work out for 30 days, have a camp for 30 days to get ready to play games, to reduce injuries and to maintain health. Because again, one of the biggest issues coming out of this is you don't want to start play right away without anything, because you don't want players getting hurt because they haven't played in a while. Because obviously once you play for a while, your body gets used to it. So obviously it lowers your chances of injury, where if you just start going hard from the get-go and you just started, working out for the first time in months or whatever, or doing anything in this time of basketball activity, it can sometimes create injuries and things like that. Especially guys who maybe come back from injury. So let's say they were hurt, right? So they really haven't been able to do that anyway. Now you're just telling them, okay, we need you to go out there and just play hard from the get-go. That can be looked at in a way where that's somewhat not going to work, and it could be difficult. So I think that I think if they do bring the season back, I think everybody's in agreement they do need some games. They need a camp. LeBron's even said, I need a camp or something. You need a camp where you can get the players back into shape and in a controlled environment. And then, okay, let's start playing some games. I always said you should get a camp. If you want to play 5 regular seasons, do 5. Do 5 games, then playoffs. I don't think you need to go right to the playoffs. Playoffs is where you're supposed to play hard from game 1 of your first round. And because every game counts. Where in regular season, okay, our legs are not fully back under us. Let's play hard. Third quarter, not first half, et cetera, et cetera. So, but that was the news so far. But also, I'm going to go into more detail next segment with the 25-day plan that Brian Windhorst for the NBA has had to get basketball back on TV and back with fans or without fans right here on the podcast.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, right here on the GSMC Podcast Network. Last segment, we discussed some news and notes around the league. We discussed general managers wanting at least 1 month before any types of games are played to maybe get a camp going for players so they could all practice together, get their bodies back, get back in shape and basketball shape, so that can help reduce the amount of injuries that could potentially occur because of them getting back out there. We also talked about the 2K champion that was crowned. Devin Booker won the 2K tournament. Obviously, I talked about that. My opinion on the tournament as a whole and what things they should do if they ever want to do it again, what they can improve on. And we also talked about Rudy Gobert speaking out, talking about his relationship with Donovan Mitchell, saying it's not the best, but they still do have a common goal, which is to win the championship one day. And we'll have to see what happens with that relationship moving forward because, like I said, since they are currently slotted into the playoffs, if they come back, they're probably going to be playing in the playoffs together, and they need to be able to get on the same page to be able to play good team basketball. And now we're going to talk about a couple of things in this segment, but I'm going to talk about the main thing. Brian Windhorst went into details about a 25-day detailed plan about how they can get the NBA back within 25 days. A 25-day plan. Now, obviously, I'm not going to go to every detail here, but I'm going to go into some detail. And here's the thing. The league has been looking into different scenarios. Obviously, you have input from GMs, you have input from coaches, you have input from owners, you might even have input from players. One thing the league has been looking at, they have been looking at potentially doing like this kind of blood test they can do where they can figure out within 15 minutes if people get tested. Because I think one of the biggest things is what the league is worried about and what they want to make sure of is, okay, if we bring the league back, how can we best guarantee every player gets tested? We know every player is clean, and we know that we're not going to potentially spread the virus. Could they do something where they test you before every game to make sure that everybody is good from the last game, so we're not going to this game and then someone's positive now, and then it's just like, oh shoot, he's positive, we gotta get him out of here. I think the league, like I said, is doing everything they can possible to bring the NBA back, because that is the goal. They want to bring the league back. They want to bring the NBA back. They want to bring, basketball back, because that's what the fans want. This is basketball season. The playoffs were supposed to start Saturday. And now we still have nothing. And so I think, and there's also another report that they wanted the playoffs to at least be over by Labor Day. So if the playoffs, if they did a 7-game format, that usually takes about 2 months, right? 2 months max. You can almost say almost 2 months max to do the playoffs, right? So they would probably want to then start the season by July. Or the playoffs by July at least. Obviously, it seems very likely that if they do bring the season back, there will be no fans. So it will be very interesting to see the product of basketball with no fans. There are some questions because this isn't basketball related, but it is sports related in terms of no fans. I am a WWE fan. They have been running shows without fans. And I will tell you, it's much different because a game like basketball and football and wrestling and baseball, you just think fans need to be there to feel the electricity, because watching it at home, it just feels like you're just watching people play on TV and you're hearing all the grunts and moans, and it's just like, is it really that, like the crowd helps you get excited. And I think basketball, one thing I think NBA doesn't want to do is bring basketball back, and then people are like, oh, the fans aren't being there. It just doesn't feel the same. And then you're going to have people saying, well, should they have brought it back if this was what we're going to get? So that's obviously something that they have to look into, but that is going to probably be the case. They even did a survey where they asked fans, would you come back to a sporting event without a vaccine? And 81% of fans, like the casual fan, not sports fan, the casual fan said no. Now, I think 68% of sports fans said I wouldn't go without a vaccine. So clearly, it's going to be a trying time. It's going to be a trying time. There's a lot going on that I think we need to try to figure out. I think if they have a deadline of 25 days, I believe it's a 25-day plan to get stuff in place, to get testing in place, to get everything that they're looking into in place. So then it's just like, okay, let's do this. Then, like I said, maybe we can do a camp here. We can actually start playing games again here. And then, obviously, I believe there was about almost 15 or 10 games left in the regular season for most teams, between 10 and 15 games. So I honestly figured that they might cut that number down, because do you really want to play 10 to 15 games and then hit playoffs? Because I understand it, because you have teams battling for playoff spots, and there's teams battling for seeding, and they may only be like a game or two behind, and they were trying to fight to get that upper seed or to get into the playoffs. And just to say to them, oh yeah, we're ending it, we're just going to start the playoffs, some teams may feel like, well, dang, because then that's the thing. If you're going to bring the regular season back, every team has to get situated. Because if they said, okay, we're just going to go right to the playoffs, the only teams that need to get ready are playoff teams. Playoff teams got to get into camp. Playoff teams got to get ready. Because the rest of the league doesn't have to do anything because they're not in the playoffs. But if you're bringing back the whole regular season before this playoffs, you have to get every team situated. You have to get every team, ready to go. Everybody has guidelines, things in place so they can come back and be able to, play. And, I think, like I said, it's something the NBA has to. So, it's important. And so, it's going to be very interesting to see what they plan, what they're planning. It'll be interesting to see what they come up with, in my opinion. Because I know, like I said, they're trying to do anything they potentially can to put themselves back in position to be able to do what they want to do, which is bring the game back that everybody loves. And so, like I said, we'll have to see if they can pull it off. And we'll have to see what the final preparations they're going to make to actually get the league back when it's all said and done. Because a lot of people miss the league. As much as we love this all access death, we don't want to see 2K tournaments. We don't want to see horse tournaments. we just want to see basketball. We want to see LeBron going to chip. We want to see Kawhi going to chip. We want to see all the storylines. We want to see all our favorite players. That's who we want to see. You know, and obviously, like I said, this coronavirus has stopped a lot of things. It stopped a lot of people. You know, put a lot of people in holes and stuff. But, you know, that's the big thing. That's what we want to see. So we'll have to see what the NBA actually decides to end up doing. But also, Steph Curry was on live, I believe on JaVale McGee's live, and said he could drop 60 on anybody in the NBA, which got him excited. Obviously, Steph Curry is known as one of the most humblest guys in the league. Never is the guy to come out and say, I'm better than someone, I can beat anybody. You know, he's not going to sit here and say he won't or he can't, but he's not going to say, oh, I destroy him. Oh, he's nothing. Because Steph Curry is one of the most humblest guys we have in the game. And so him coming out and saying that obviously got him excited, got some people talking like, oh, so Steph really can't. Hey, remember, Steph's a sharpshooter. If he lights it up from 3, he could beat somebody by 60. I mean, so it's just good to see, you know, Steph Curry in this element, you know, and doing these things. I think that's the biggest thing. So I think that's a very exciting thing for them and for them to see and et cetera. Steph Curry just having some fun and going out there and doing what he does best. So, but that's all there is for that. Coming up next, we're going to talk about some college basketball stuff. I know I haven't talked about college basketball in a while, but we're going to talk about some college basketball. We're going to talk about have one and dones ruin college basketball. Some people think yes, some people think no. I'll give you my thoughts and all that right here on the podcast.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast. Last segment, we talked about the NBA's plan, 25 days to try to get the season back, get precautions in place so they could potentially start the season back up again. And I discussed some things that, you know, they're trying to do. I discussed my opinions on what they should do and what they're trying to do. And, you know, just, you know, we hope for the best. We hope that we can get basketball back. Players want it back. I think everybody wants it back. Probably with no fans, but just getting the game I think people love. I think is what everybody would love to have right now and see what happens. So we're definitely going to have to see what actually ends up happening when it's all said and done. So now we're going to switch over to some college basketball talk. I haven't talked about a real college basketball segment in a while, ever since the season ended. Because obviously in college, outside of recruits signing, it ain't too much going on. Obviously, this is a primarily NBA-centric show, but with college, like, sprinkled in there. So, obviously, most we'll probably get into is draft. But, you know, obviously, since we have nothing going on, I could get a little bit more deeper into some college topics and be more colleger. I might bring more college-related content on here now because of that. So, one thing I want to talk about is something that's been debated for a long time since the rule was changed from 18 to 19, is do one-and-dones ruined college basketball. When the one and done came in, there was a lot of controversy around it because you have this kid who basically, this is the thing about basketball. Coming out of high school, NBA scouts know if you're a top pick. So basically, going to college for that 1 year doesn't necessarily change anything for a lot of players if you're a top player coming out. If you're the number one recruit in a class, you're basically the number one overall draft pick in the NBA draft. Because remember, LeBron, AI, KG, Kobe, all came out of high school. They didn't go to college. And so, obviously, it's been shown that coming out of high school, you can play in the NBA. But it's only for the top talented players. You have to be a top talented player to do it. You can't be just a player. If that's the case, you need to go to college. The reason why also this debate is here is because of how it's changed recruiting in college basketball. Just usually, when if a player's, say in high school, basically colleges knew, okay, he's probably going to the draft, so we don't even need to extend our time and effort in our scouting department on him because he's going to the draft. Because usually the smart thing for anybody would do is if you're coming out of high school, number one player in the country, number one overall draft pick, you're not going to college. There's just no, unless there's just something that's valuable to you where you just I gotta go to college. If you're not going for 4 years, what's the point of playing a year? Unless you just truly want that college experience that bad, you're going to the NBA and you're making money. And so, with the one and done rule, now players have to go to college usually for a year, because usually when you graduate college, you're never 19. So it's not like, if you were 19 coming out of high school, then you could go. Because it's not by, you have to go to college to be eligible. It's just you have to be 19. You don't hit 19 until you get into college. So, players are still going to college for a year. And so the issue is that it's changed recruiting in a way where coaches have to now recruit these 5-star guys, and then you might recruit a 4-star guy, and then what happens is that a 4-star recruit as a freshman could be a lottery pick or close to a lottery pick or a first-round pick in general, and then you have 2 5-stars. They're leaving just because they're 5-star guys and they're lottery picks. So now your 3 best players are all leaving for the draft after 1 year of college, and you're having to fill those holes. Plus, usually what some college basketball teams, especially unless you're in an elite blue chip program, you have your higher end recruits or better talented players playing, and then you have guys who may not be as great coming out of high school, not as touted on the end of your bench, and then eventually they develop into players who can then play later. Well, the problem is, if you're losing those guys and then you don't replace the talent you just lost, there's no guarantee who you're bringing in is going to be better or good enough to make up for it. That was one of the issues I think they said people like Mike Krzyzewski had a struggle. Because he always was so used to getting a player, developing him, making them good. Because college basketball, you can develop your players. These college basketball players can develop in college. But they just know, since they have the ability to get the money right away, unless you're a guy who's just not a highly touted NBA prospect, you usually stay 3-4 years usually. In a way, you could almost say it could be rare to see a lot of players stay 4 years in college. But there's so many college basketball teams. Obviously, mid-majors and lower colleges obviously have seniors that stay usually most of the time, because they usually don't get the top line recruits. And usually, if you're going to usually if you go to Murray State, you're not a top player. Usually if you go there. So you can develop into a top player while you're there, but you're not usually that getting coming out of high school. They were lucky to get John Morant, because John Morant was a top player coming out of high school. It happens sometimes. It can put you on the map, where that's why you have certain mid-major conferences that always have talent, because they were able to develop talent, make them good, put them on the map. Recruits noticed them and said, oh, they're getting to, national championships without having top line recruits, so I could be a top recruit, go here. Then I get this type of coaching, I could develop. Only issue is that you don't know what the talent pool gonna look like that year. Because Butler's good most years, but they may be a year they're not good, because they don't have a lot of talent. If you go that year, that could be the year you don't have a great year. People said that about Anthony Edwards. 1 year guy went to Georgia. Why would you go to Georgia? Georgia's not a basketball power in college basketball, but he went there. He wanted to help bring Georgia back to prominence. It would make more sense if he stayed for a couple of years, but he only stayed for 1. There has been discussion. Should they do 2 years? Should they make college players stay 2 years at least and then let them go? Or should they do it where you let them come out right out of high school, where the rule was basically, they proposed, would you let them come out of high school straight to the NBA, or if they go to college, they have to stay at least 2 years? Because imagine some of the teams that people could have if you could keep some of the 5-star talent you had the previous year and then have more 5-star talent come in. obviously the blue chip, but the thing is it wouldn't help the blue chip programs necessarily, because think about it. Okay, if this team already has 5-star guys ahead of me, why would I want to go here and potentially not get the playing time that I want? Because, like, yeah, after the second year they may leave and then I'll be a starter, but then you might bring in somebody else and think that he's better than me and then play him over me. So I need to go to another school that I know I can get playing time maybe for my freshman year, because I'm trying to go to the draft, and then also I'm trying to go to the draft. So that could change things for players. That could change what you think about schools. You know, I mean, they do the thing now where NBA players that are kind of like borderline draft picks or second round guys or low first round pick guys, because they're usually the ones who take advantage of this, is where now you can go into the draft process, you can see what it looks like, what you're projected, and then you have the ability by a certain deadline to come back to school and then play another season of college. Because, you know, they were talking about how players, you know, usually, you know, all these players are getting told all these things by different people saying, oh, you're great, man, you'll be a lottery pick, they love you, and then they actually get their projection, they're a second round pick. They're not loved that much. But the problem is, since you committed, you couldn't go back, so now it's just like, well, shoot, now I'm a second round pick, and instead where I may never even reach a main NBA team and play, I may either be further confined as either an overseas or a G League player my whole career, when maybe if I went back to school for another year, develop my skills a little bit more, maybe, you never know, I could raise my stock, give myself a better chance to be in a better situation the next time I come out. So it's kind of that dilemma right there. There's kind of that situation. And, you know, I think it's something that it's definitely going to be looked at. I don't think it's ruined the game necessarily, because, yes, of course it makes you wonder if they stayed, what the teams look like. But I also feel like it helps because you never know truly what's going to actually end up happening in the long term. You never know what's going to truly end up happening if you did have all those recruits come in, because you got to think about it. Now those 5-star recruits that are going to be lottery picks aren't coming. So now you're just going to be back to what you used to be doing. But instead, now you're filling your team up with, like, I guess, lower end recruits, so to say, for 2 years, instead of, you know, okay, I know these guys are gone after a year, replace them. Yawn, replace them. Gone, replace them. John Calipari has been the master of that. Ever since he was at Memphis, going to Kentucky, it's 5 stars every year coming in and out of the program. But yeah, so that's all we got for this segment. We're going to continue with this talk, but a little bit shifted. We're going to talk about is going to college as a player and staying in college beneficial more than leaving as soon as possible. Right here and more on the podcast.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast. Last segment we discussed have one and done ruin college basketball. I discussed my thoughts and my views on that. I don't necessarily feel like it's ruined it. It's just made college basketball more complex from a recruiting standpoint, but I don't think it's necessarily ruined the college game. But I can understand why people may feel that way because of just the in-repeatedness of just, you know, college is like, I guess it's one of all those things for the fans. You know, when you have college kids that stay the whole time, you can really love them. We're one and done guys. You know, they just don't care about anything. They're just playing this season because they have to. You feel like the love and the integrity of the game isn't the same. And, you know, when you know a guy's just going to be here for a year and dip, you wonder how invested he is. And I can understand all of that as a fan, why you may feel as if has this messed the game up. Obviously, I talked about Repose Pen. They've discussed in the past about something they may want to do to fix it, but it just depends. But now I'm going to get into a discussion where I'm shifting more into does staying in college be, or is it more beneficial? Now, this is a debate that's been brought up because obviously, if you know, back in I think 06 or 07, if you know who Brandon Jennings is, Brandon Jennings was a top recruit coming out of high school. Obviously, top colleges wanted him, right? But he decided to do the unconventional route and go overseas. Obviously, this struck a lot of people crazy because it's like how we view basketball is we view the best and highest level of basketball is in America at the NBA level. But it doesn't necessarily mean at the college level we're the best level of basketball, even though we may believe that. Because overseas presents a challenge that college doesn't. See, college, you're playing against people your age. See, college, he could go to a league and play with grown men. And that experience is so much different when you're young coming out of high school than coming against guys who are your age that you know you're better in or better than, because obviously I'm the number one recruit in the nation, so clearly everybody knows my skills are superior than everybody here. Grown men, these are men that have developed their games and are not scared of anybody. If you truly are that talented, you go out there and you need to prove it. And they're not going to be intimidated. They're going to try to shut you down. And so the question is it beneficial to go to college, stay in college, and develop? And I think it is. I think whatever route a player chooses, any route can be beneficial. It's just different experiences. I do feel like college, I think, is viewed as something where if you're a player who's not a top player coming out, you should go ahead and go to college to develop your game. Because college coaches, I mean, listen, they're not sitting here just saying, we're just going to play and you just do it. It's not like that. I mean, obviously we get this reputation because AAU system has been very much attacked by a lot of players. How they say, AAU system, you don't really learn how to develop your skills. You develop your skills at home. And that's how you become such a great player. And then you have your God-gifted talents. And then you just show off. It's basically like a showcase AAU is. But you don't really get better playing AAU basketball, so to say. College, you're better than everybody. So in a way, how invested are you into the college? How invested are you into the team, the coaching, getting better? If you're being told by the time you enter college, you're going to be number one draft pick, you may feel like I don't have to improve one bit. Some players have that mindset. Now, obviously, I feel like a true worker would continue to try to improve and take advantage of whoever the coaches are and say, how can I get better? How can I even be better? But some players don't. And if you go overseas, you're playing in different leagues. But it depends on your league. There are some leagues that are even lesser than college. There are some leagues who are better than college. So it just depends on which league you actually go for. And obviously the perk also of going overseas is you can get paid right away. But I feel like it can be beneficial going to college because, obviously, there are good coaches here. Mike Krzyzewski is considered a Hall of Fame head coach. He coaches the USA team. So when he's not coaching the top college basketball players in the country, he goes and coaches the top NBA players in the country going against other countries. And every NBA player says, I'd love to play for him because they know how good of a coach he is. But I'm not saying that you would only get good coaching at big colleges. Small colleges, I think, are great because remember, you're at a smaller college or you're not at a big known basketball college. So people aren't expecting a lot of you. So if you bring in a coach who really wants to help the players develop their game, that can be beneficial. That's why coaches, sometimes like to say, I like the guys I can get from freshman year and keep them around until senior year. Because there's going to be a big jump in what they were freshmen until when they get to the senior year. And then those are the teams that you see in NCAA tournaments that shock the world because they have the chemistry. They've developed all together. They've gotten better. Remember the Wisconsin team with Frank Kaminsky. All of them were seniors. They all played together 4 years. That's why when it got down to their senior years, they were one of the top teams in the country. Because they have that time to develop together. The chemistry. You gotta think about it. College basketball, one and dones. You go there for a year, you're playing with the top guys, but it's like we're only gonna play for a year. So I don't necessarily, we have to develop chemistry because if you want to win, you want to win. You're gonna try to figure out how to win, but it's not as potent where if you're not a top guy and you're going to be there for a couple of years, you definitely want to maximize what you can out of this college career that you have. You want to maximize how much you can get out of this and how much you can earn from this type of teaching. And so I think it's something that, people like to try to say college is not bad. Now, the NCAA obviously has been roasted, has been toasted by a lot of people because the NCAA, people have felt like they're not in the best interest of student athletes. They're just more caring about the money and exploiting student athletes to get money. But and that's what I think chases some people away from the college game. Not playing college basketball, but the organization they're playing for. Where, like I said, going overseas still gives you the opportunity to make money. You're playing still against players who have good level of talent and still develop your game, because obviously it's been shown, again, like I said, with the AAU system, like Kobe said, overseas, they teach you all the fundamentals. They teach you everything. Regardless if you're a big man or a guard, they teach you everything. So that's why overseas guys are always fundamentally sound. And then if they have talent, they can become stars. Because some of those guys overseas don't have a lick of talent, but they have such great fundamentals, they're still a good enough player to play. And sometimes that's what some players go overseas for that teaching, for that coaching that they can get, that they can't get usually with college basketball. Or not necessarily college, AAU basketball. And then college is like, again, if you're a top guy, am I really going to do this? I mean, there's guys who aren't top recruits that go overseas and think that's the best route for them. I mean, it really just depends. But I think college can be beneficial. Because, you get to play 30 or so, 32 games, I believe, 33 games. You get conference tournaments. You get NCAA tournaments. You get NITs. You get all this stuff. You have all these games you can play. You can still have a lot of fun. You're living that college lifestyle. And you can still develop your game from that. You can develop your game from that. So it's not necessarily ever a bad thing. It's not necessarily ever, it's just from a money perspective. If they ever did decide to pay the players, then obviously I think that would sway a lot more players. Even though a lot of players still go to the college game, the players who might go overseas may even be swayed to be like, you know what, we're getting paid. Well, no, it might keep any good player from college to go overseas, because it's just like, well, I get paid here. Even if they may pay me more there, I mean, I'm still getting paid, and I get to stay in America, close to my parents, and etc. And like I said, depending on what they do with this one and done rule, I think that's important too, because players, think about the players who are not playing because of the 5-star guys who are leaving after a year. They may not get a guy to replace them next year. So you may have to be up there next. So obviously you want to get better. You don't want to stay the same. You want to show him, I can play against these guys and I can be just as good as these guys when they leave. So it's definitely something that is going to be discussed. It's going to be talked about. And it's something that's just going to be around for, I think, a minute and a while. And it's a very exciting time, I think, for any player who wants to get into the game necessarily and just get into everything that is basketball. So I think college can be beneficial. I think you can gain a lot from the college lifestyle. You can gain a lot from college coaching. And it can work. And you can still develop yourself into the best player you can potentially be and become draftable if that's a goal of yours, or just become a very good basketball player at the end of the day. Well, that's all we have there. Coming up next, we're going to play a little game. We're going to do some of the challenges I've seen on Twitter. Start one, bench one, and cut one right here on the podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast. Last segment I discussed, is there still a benefit to going to play college basketball? Is overseas the best route? Is it something that we're going to see more of? Obviously, still most of the top athletes go to the NCAA, but you do still see the occasional player who goes overseas or chooses a different route. Will that continue? Will that be the case moving forward? You know, because obviously there's a lot of question of, is it still beneficial to go to college? Do you feel like you would develop and get what you want from the college game if you went to the college teams? You know, obviously speaking about one and dones and et cetera, but that's kind of pretty much how that's gone for the most part. But, you know, we'll have to see what happens, you know, continuing forward and, you know, just moving on into the future. So, you know, but now we're going to do a game. Something's been trending on Twitter, social media. A lot of people are doing this recently. A little game called Start, Bench, and Cut. I'll look at a few of ones I see on social media. I'll tell you the people, and then I'll give you my answer on who I would start, who I would bench, and who would I cut. So, to start off, the first start, bench, and cut, it's Jason Tatum, Brandon Ingram, and Pascal Siakam. Now, obviously, when you make these decisions, this is all based off of in their prime, at their best. So, if I had to start one, well, first, if I had to cut one, I'm going to cut Brandon Ingram, even though he's had a great year. I just, you know, Tatum and Siakam, I feel like have played at a higher level on a bigger stages, so I have to go ahead and cut Ingram. I think I'm going to start Jason Tatum and I'm going to bench Siakam because Jason Tatum to me has this feel to me of more of a superstar. I can take over the games and win you games type of thing. Like he could be a superstar for the next 10 years. Or Siakam, I think he'll be a player who will be a top end player, but he won't be like that guy, like the guy you get, like Siakam can get you there. I'm not saying Tatum is like, you've seen how good he can be and you may think he may be able to get you there. Siakam, I think, will be an elite number 2 option. And if he's a number 1, I think is going to get you at least 50 games a year and maybe a deep playoff run depending on how much you put around him. So, I think Tatum has more potential of a championship player. So I think I'm going to go with Jason Tatum in that situation. So I'm going to start Jason Tatum, bench Pascal Siakam, and cut Brandon Ingram. Also, now we're going to go in the guard. Start, bench, cut Dwayne Wade, AI, Allen Iverson, or James Harden. So, okay. I'm going to say this is a tough one. I think I'm going to go ahead and cut D Wade. I'm going to bench James, and I'm going to start AI. A little bit surprised. I think some people think AI is a little smaller than both of them, but AI is just as good of a scorer of anybody in the league. James Harden, you know, he's obviously one of the most elite scorers, so obviously if you come down to the last two, it come down to scoring. Dwayne Wade, he's a great scorer and a better defensive player than both of these guys, but I just feel like in their prime, you know, AI got a team with a bunch of defensive pieces to the finals. You know, and James has yet to make the finals. Dwayne Wade's won a couple of championships, but he's had another superstar. So I guess it's been shown AI has done more with less, you could say. So I'm going to go ahead and start AI, bench James Harden, and then cut Dwayne Wade. Next up, Lakers edition. Would you start Magic Johnson? Or actually, the combatants are Magic Johnson, Kobe Bryant, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I'm starting Kareem Abdul-Jabbar because, first of all, with his side hook, he was unstoppable. You know, he basically was an unstoppable player. So, obviously, you're going to start him. Now, bench, I'm going to bench Kobe, cut Magic. I just feel like, you know, Magic was great for what he was in that time. He was great in terms of all the field point guards. But, you know, Kobe's just such a beast and such a Mamba. I just think you got to go ahead and at least give him respect and keep him on the team. But I definitely want to start Kareem just because I feel like Kareem was an unstoppable player during his time. And I think he could even be unstoppable today, especially with that hook shot. So I think I definitely got to give Kareem Abdul-Jabbar the respect that he deserves and what he has done for Laker Nation and how great he's been for them. He's just been so great for the franchise. And, I think a lot of people, since he played very early, some people still don't appreciate Kareem for what he has done and what he did during his time. But y'all don't realize how dominant and how just unstoppable Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was back in the day. Even remember, he was playing before I was born. years before I was born. And from what I've seen from film and what people have told me, I just feel like, Kareem would be the guy. But I've seen Kobe and I've seen highlights of Magic, and I just feel like Kobe would be benched and I would cut Magic Johnson. Next start, bench and cut. Tony Parker, Rajon Rondo, or Agent Zero, Gilbert Arenas. So first, I'm cutting Rondo. Rondo is out of there. Rondo. I don't care about no playoff Rondo. Rondo is not. No. Tony Parker, I'm going to bench him. I'm going to start Gilbert Arenas. Gilbert Arenas, if y'all ever watch, y'all forget about Gilbert Arenas. If y'all remember watching that man back in the day, he was one of the most hardest, he was one of the hardest players to guard. And he was one of the most explosive players in the NBA when he played. He was just a guy that, he could get his shot anytime. Anytime. And, Rondo, obviously, he has no offensive game, really, outside of maybe some layups. And he can pass the ball, but that's about it. Tony Parker never was elite at one thing, but good at everything. And a good leader. So that's why I would bench him, but cut Rondo. So I'm starting Gilbert Arenas. And so that's those are my guys there. So, next, Kyrie Irving, Devin Booker, Russell Westbrook, start, bench, cut. So, I might surprise some people with this one. I'm going to start Devin Booker, bench Russell Westbrook, and cut Kyrie Irving. Reason why? I think Devin Booker is one of the most underappreciated players in the NBA. I think because we look at him on the Suns, we think he's not good. But I also look at this. If Kyrie was in his situation in Phoenix, Phoenix would be the exact same team they are now. So I don't think there's any difference there. But plus, obviously, if you want to bring in some of Kyrie's leadership issues and stuff, the fact that he really, is whatever, you would probably be like, even though Kyrie's one of the best scorers on this list, all these guys are great scorers, I just feel like Devin Booker, his range, he can shoot it from everywhere. So I think Devin Booker is an automatic 26 a game. And then Russell Westbrook, I bench him because he was a triple-double king, Obviously, you need somebody on the bench like Russell, and then I'll cut Kyrie because I just feel like, Kyrie gets hurt too often and et cetera, and I just feel like, okay, well, the other two at least have been healthy most of their career. And so I can't sit here and say I need to bench him because, he's played. And you can't hate on a man who plays. So, there you go. Next up, start, bench, cut. Darren Williams, Chris Paul, Damian Lillard. Obviously, again, all these players in their prime. D-Will was that guy back in the day for the Utah Jazz. Was that guy. I'll start Chris Paul. I'll bench Damian. I'll cut Darren. I think Chris Paul is probably the best pure point guard in a while. Him and Darren Williams were pure point guards. Chris Paul was a guy really realistically could give you 25 a game, 10, 11 assists, play defense. He can do it all. He was a true leader, a true point guard, and really was a guy who, just was something to mess with. Damian Lillard, we know how clutch he can be. And, D Will had his competing, he played at a high level, but I just feel like with those two guys in the prime, I think I would go with them over D Will. So start Chris Paul, bench Damian Lillard, cut Darren Williams. And then we have another start, bench, cut Ben Simmons, Devin Booker, Jason Tatum. Start Booker, bench, start Tatum, bench Booker, cut Simmons. Simmons has no shot. You can't ever be in my top unless I was going against worse. If Rondo was in here, then I say Ben Simmons. Jason Tatum, superstar. Booker, superstar. Ben Simmons, not really a superstar. Easy cut. Jason Tatum, I feel like is at a more higher point in his career than Devin Booker. So I'll go with him, and then I'll bench Devin Booker. And then lastly, start, bench, cut Bradley Beal, Klay Thompson, and Devin Booker. I'm going to start Klay. I'm going to bench Beal. I'm going to cut Devin. Reason why I think Beal really showed that he can be a top guy this year. Devin Booker, obviously, they're in the same situation. So it's kind of a flip which one are you going to cut. I'm going to cut Devin Booker. I'm going to start Klay. Klay obviously has been championship pedigree, one of the greatest shooters to ever play this game also. So I don't see why you wouldn't. So, there you go. And that's my cut, start, and bench list right there. I hope y'all enjoyed that. It's something a little different for the podcast, you know what I'm saying? But coming up next, we going to get into some we're going to talk about some players I think are underrated, players who are known as good players or stars, but still not given the appreciation that other stars, other good players that have gotten in the league right here on the podcast.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, right here on the GSMC Podcast Network. Last segment, we played a game, Start, Bench, and Cut. It's been trending on social media, so I decided to get in on the fun. We talked about multiple three-player scenarios who I would start, bench, and cut. And so, obviously, this expired this next segment, or our last segment of the show, where I'm just going to talk about some players who, in the league today, who are known as good, or known as very good players, or stars, or all-stars, but still don't get the same recognition as other stars. So I'm going to discuss some guys, in my opinion, who are very, very underrated, don't get the same respect that other players get, and I'm going to tell y'all why you definitely need to appreciate this player more than you have, because, listen, they're the type of people that after they leave the game, you're like, he was really good. He really was one of the reasons why so-and-so has success and da-da-da-da-da. And it happens all the time. So, we're going to get into it right now on the podcast. First player I want to talk about is a guy I talked about a lot last segment, Devin Booker. Devin Booker is one of the best two guards in this game, but because the Suns have not had a lot of success, he doesn't get the same recognition and appreciation that he deserves. Devin Booker is only 22 years old, still very young, 23 I think actually, still extremely young. He's one of the best shooters. He is up there with Clay and Steph in terms of shooters in the NBA, and people don't even think of shooters. When you think, who are the best shooters in the NBA? Steph, Clay, Damian. But you don't think Devin can shoot and have the range just like them. Legitimately, if you replace Klay Thompson with Devin Booker, now you may sit here and say defensively they might not be the same, but offensively it would not be a fall off. Honestly, it could be an improvement. So, and they're gonna score the same way. So, because Devin Booker can get off screens and shoot, so can Klay. So, obviously, like I said, Devin Booker has always been able to shoot since college, and obviously he's never been respected and appreciated as some of the top guards in the game. And I just want to give him some appreciation because Devin Booker. He's a guy who's like, listen, if he gets into a better situation, he can maybe be appreciated more. It's the same situation Kemba Walker was in Charlotte, where everybody knew Kemba Walker could ball, but at the same time, since they didn't win, you kind of thought, oh, he's only so good. And, that's why it was very important to see what happens when he's on Boston, because you get to see, how good he is on a championship level team. Obviously, yeah, Jason Tatum's the number one, but Kemba could be considered the number two, between him and Jaylen Brown. Because we know how clutch Kemba can be. And I think that's kind of what I think with Devin Booker is like, we won't really appreciate him and know what he can truly do until he is put out there in a situation where he's in a winning situation and we get to see truly how good of a player that he truly is. And why we should sleep on him and why we should appreciate him. So, he's the first player I want to talk about. Another guy, Chris Middleton. Obviously, he's one of the more well-known underrated people. Obviously, Chris Middleton, when he came into the league, really wasn't a player that was expected to do much. At best, maybe a role player. And how he's developed himself into an all-star player, a guy who can put up 20 a night, and has really developed his game. He kind of reminds me of Jimmy Butler. Remember when Jimmy Butler came into the league, he was really just a defensive player who could, get to the rim here and there, and then he developed his game and really took off. That's kind of what Chris Middleton has became. And, obviously some people still look at him at best on a good team as a third option, but that's why it's going to be big for Milwaukee this year. Obviously, they've said if they're going to be successful, Chris Middleton has to play like a number 2. He has to play very great complementary basketball to Giannis and play at an extremely high level, or else people are going to continue to sit here and question if he's really that good. He's one of those players, since he was never supposed to be this good, people are always going to wonder if he is that good. He's just better than expected. But then people are like, okay, is he that good though? So I think he's one of the guys that I think definitely could take this opportunity and really just shoot off, with a great postseason. Because obviously, again, in today's, NBA, people, you may sit here and dominate in the regular season, but people, I feel like, think it's the regular season, anything can happen. And so I feel like a lot of people like to devalue what you do in the regular season. Like, it's not that impressive. Unless you're doing something crazy. You having a good regular season, okay, anybody can have a good regular season. But what do you do in the playoffs? That's what's going to tell me if you're actually a good player or not. So obviously that's a very interesting, concept, a very interesting question that Chris Middleton has been answering for a while. And I just feel like you need to appreciate him because this guy can ball. He can play. He worked himself to get that max contract he got from Milwaukee. And I'm sure a lot of teams would want a Chris Middleton on their team. So another guy is Pascal Siakam. He's a guy who has gotten better every year. Has played his best year this year, even though he was hurt for a little bit, but still has not gotten the credit and recognition. Obviously, that's more about of experience and about him being on the main scene for a while. But obviously, I think it's also easy to underlook him. And I think, he's a guy who just really, has done so well for what he's done. He's developed every year. And that's what you want when you draft these players like you do, like the Toronto did with Pascal. You want players who every year from year to year can make a growth, can see improvement. There is a jump in their game. That's what you want. That's why you draft young players. That's why you see these young players potentially. You think, okay, if this is what you're doing this year, if you work at it this offseason, you should be even better. And Siakam's one of the guys who have paid off for them where every year he's gotten better. He's became a better player. And that's why they're in great position now to have a core piece and say, hey, we have a guy here that could be a number 2, number 3 option, whatever. And if we bring in another Kawhi situation, even if he has a bad night, well, we still have so-and-so. He could still play at a high level. He can still play well. And it ends up being successful for literally everyone. So for me, I feel like this is just a prime situation for, Pascal Siakam to really take off and get the appreciation that he deserves as a player. Because without him, Toronto, to me, wouldn't have won because it gave them that other guy outside of Kawhi who could still do something. Obviously, Fred VanVleet stepped up. He had a great season too. Can't Saints sleep on him either, but I'm just saying, Pascal Siakam is the guy that you definitely don't want to underrate and underappreciate because he's a guy that, people don't look at a lot. Another guy also I want to talk about is John Collins. A lot of people definitely underrate John Collins. First, because he was never anybody drafted to be any big star. He's never talked about any time on any type of news outlets. John Collins is a walking 20 and 10. How many power forwards can walk into this game right now and give you 20 and 10 on a nightly basis? John Collins can shoot the 3, get in the paint, dunk, shoot the mid-range. His issue is like what a lot of playing players' issue is his defense, but that hasn't stopped other young players from being recognized as stars. I think it would be absolutely horrible if Atlanta let this man go. Because, yeah, Clint Capella is great, but is he giving you 20 and 10? No. Because John Collins is a walking bucket. He can go out there every night and score for you. He's really developed his offensive game. And so I think they definitely need to keep him around. I think John Collins, if he hits the market, you will see how many people really want him. Because they'll sit here and say, we can put things around him to cover up the defense, but nobody can replace that 20 points a game. Nobody can replace that. John Collins right now, some people look at it, would be a great third option on a team. A guy who can, like I said, stretch the floor, get into the paint, alley hoops. I think that would be absolutely excellent. Absolutely excellent. Because it just shows. It shows. it just seems so great. It seems like everything works out, you know, for everything that pops up and happens. And, you know, I think John Collins, if he continues to play at this level, and if he can really get some serious all-star consideration, I think his name will start to be out there more, and I think people will start to appreciate him a little bit more than they have, and that could definitely create more success and a more successful, you know, situation for him, you know, moving forward. So, you know, obviously that's a big deal. That's a big deal if he can get some appreciation. And those are just a few of my players that I feel like have been underrated for a very good minute, haven't been, you know, rated highly, haven't been rated as successfully, you know, as highly as they should be. And so I think if everything works out, all these players, if they continue on their trajectory up, they'll end up getting that appreciation one day. But right now they are a little underappreciated in the basketball community. And that's all we have for you right here on the GSMC Basketball Podcast. Right here with your host, Brice Lewis. Glad you tuned in. Hope y'all staying safe out there. Don't forget to listen to our other podcasts on this amazing network. And don't forget to also listen to our social media. Follow our social media. So thank you and have a good day.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.